Welcome to this explainer. Picture this. You're a veteran developer, 10 years deep into Laravel, and you're staring down a team mandate to use GitHub Copilot for an entire month. Your very first thought? This is going to completely waste my time, and I'm going to prove it doesn't work. Well, today we're unpacking an incredibly honest, eye-opening 30-day experiment that's set out to do exactly that. And let me tell you, the results are far more complex and fascinating than a simple pass or fail.
Okay, let's dive into this. To make sense of this experiment, we're tracking a strict 4-week line. We'll hit the 30-day setup, the magic of boilerplate, entering the danger zone, learning to drive the AI, the real productivity math, and finally, the ultimate verdict.
All right, part 1, the 30-day setup, real projects and stakes. Looking at the roadmap for this trial, we're going to see a massive shift in the developer's mindset over these 4 weeks. We go from heavy skepticism in week 1 right into a harsh reality check in week 2, a total change of tactics for week 3, and then the hard calculations in week 4. And hey, we aren't dealing with sterile, artificial to-do apps here. This AI was unleashed on 3 active, high-pressure code bases. We're talking a multi-tenant SaaS platform with complex billing, a high-traffic REST API heavy on the Eloquent usage, and an internal admin tool migrating from Laravel 8 to 12. The absolute golden rule here: review every single suggested line. No blind accepts and no blind rejects. Moving on to section 2, the magic of boilerplate, unexpected speed. Right out of the gate, that initial skepticism got totally demolished by the sheer scale of time saved. We're talking 8 to 10-minute tasks slashed down to just 90 seconds. Literally 90 seconds. Imagine writing form requests. You type a class name, maybe a first rule, and boom, Copilot instantly autofills the correct validation rules, the field names, and custom messages. It took an eye-glazing chore and turned it into something that genuinely felt like magic. This right here is exactly where Copilot shines the absolute brightest. For highly structured, repetitive boilerplate, things like form requests, resource transformers, factory definitions, and your basic CRUD controllers, it is an incredibly accurate productivity booster. I mean, if you've ever spent 20 minutes meticulously crafting a factory for a model with 15 fields, getting that done perfectly in seconds is a massive, undeniable win. But section 3, entering the danger zone. Subtle AI failures. Yeah, the honeymoon phase didn't last forever. Check out this quote from the developer. The most dangerous suggestions are the ones that seem correct, feel accurate, and are quietly incorrect. And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying gap between plausible code and correct code. Obvious syntax errors? Sure, those are super easy to catch. But plausible errors hidden inside business-critical logic? Those are exactly the kinds of bugs that wake you up in a cold sweat at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Let's break down these specific failures, because it gets wild. When tasked with complex business logic, like proration and coupons, Copilot spit out code that looked structurally flawless but made zero mathematical sense. It confidently hallucinated fake Eloquent relationships that caused massive N+1 query nightmares. And even scarier, it introduced real security risks. We're talking mass assignment vulnerabilities via a request all call and unsanitized public file uploads. Why? Simply because it was blindly mimicking bad patterns it scraped off the internet. Which brings us to section 4, learning to drive AI, changing tactics. Realizing that letting Copilot just take the wheel was a total disaster, the developers shifted gears. They started treating the AI less like a seasoned expert and more like a crazy fast, super eager, but entirely inexperienced junior dev. The secret sauce here is context. Without context, Copilot's output is totally generic and often just flat out wrong. But when the developer took, say, 2 minutes to write a precise doc block, detailing edge cases, parameters, and business rules before even touching the function, the output jumped to being 70% correct and highly useful. You really have to guide this thing with extreme precision. And surprisingly, one of the absolute best applications of this guided approach was testing. Generating feature tests turned out to be a massive win. Given a controller and a route, Copilot was fantastic at sniffing out unconsidered edge cases, missing fields, and tricky permission boundaries. Was it perfect? No, but it built excellent test scaffolding that cranked up test coverage without the usual mental drain. Okay, section 5, the real productivity math, calculating the ROI. So the month wraps up, the data is heavily logged, and it's time to tally up the actual return on investment. Does it really save you time? Well, here's the first number to focus on: 90 minutes.
That's the estimated daily time our developers saved on writing boilerplate, migrations, doc blocks, and those repetitive patterns. That is a very solid chunk of your day handed right back to you, every single day. But you know there's a catch, right? 25 minutes. You've got to frame this as the mandatory daily tax. This is the time spent actively reviewing, catching, and fixing those subtly wrong, highly dangerous bugs we just talked about. It is the absolute, non-negotiable cost of doing business safely with an AI tool. Which leaves us with this final number, 65 minutes. That is the true net daily gain. It's about an hour a day, or roughly 22 hours over the course of the month. So yes, it's a significant boost, but only, and I mean only, if you pay that review tax. Skipping that 25-minute review doesn't magically give you 90 minutes back. It just racks up incredibly expensive technical debt and bugs that you'll absolutely be forced to fix later. And finally, Section 6, the ultimate verdict, takeaways for teams. So, what does this all mean for development teams? The crucial point here is the massive divide in how this tool impacts different skill levels. For your senior developers, Copilot is an incredibly powerful productivity tool. It's like having a remarkably fast typist that accelerates the grunt work, because seniors have the chops to critically evaluate the output. But for junior developers, it's a huge risk multiplier. It pumps out functional-looking code while reinforcing bad patterns, and it never explains the why, which can seriously stunt their deep understanding of the codebase. Plus, we have to talk about the framework itself. Laravel's inherent magic demands extra scrutiny here. Because Laravel uses highly expressive APIs, facades, and leans heavily on convention over configuration, it is way too easy for AI to get things subtly wrong. Copilot might know a mail method exists, but it completely lacks the contextual wisdom of how your specific queues, drivers, and configurations actually interact in a production environment. Which leads us directly to this incredibly powerful conclusion from the source. The developers who will benefit most from AI coding tools are not the junior developers who need them most. They're the senior developers who know enough to catch the bugs. Copilot absolutely does not replace mentorship or strict code reviews. If anything, it makes those practices vastly more critical than ever before. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. Take a hard look at your own workflows and your team's code review culture. Is your team trying to use AI to replace human expertise, or are you strategically using it to accelerate the hard-earned expertise you already have? It's a question every single development team needs to answer right now. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.